Welcome to Casting Friendship Podcast, a Dungeons and Dragons and Feelings podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Melanie.
Together, we are KaraMel. And today, we are joined by our beautiful and effervescent friend Bobby to talk about what it's like turning a hobby into a job.
I'd like to cast Friends.
Roll for charisma. Hey, Bobby. How are you feeling today?
Hi. I'm doing all right. I'm a little congested. You know, the end of the or beginning of the year sickness I think is going around. So
Yeah.
but other than that, we're doing pretty good.
I've talked to a lot of people, and everybody I know has been sick in the last month with something or other.
Everyone.
Melanie, how you feeling?
I am feeling pretty good. I am not sick. I'm a couple glasses deep into this pink wine, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Ready to talk about turning a hobby into a job.
Fantastic. I am also
Let's
a couple
get to it.
drinks deep into my wine is significantly less pink, significantly more red, but still delicious.
I'm like 3 cups of tea in.
Bobby's buzzing.
Bobby,
You know.
the Maraway runs deep within Bobby.
A little bit, yes. But I mean, it's not that I don't drink. It's just, I pretty much only drink beer, I'll be honest with you, or super, super, super fruity drinks. So.
And you certainly should not drink those things when you're ill. So good on you.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes. So we wanted today to talk to Bobby about, we kept saying we're going to talk about turning a hobby into a job. Obviously, we're talking specifically about turning playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is a game, into a career that you get paid for, which is something I am intensely envious of that Bobby has made happen in his life. So we're going to ask him like 1,000 questions, starting with, Bobby, like, how the hell did you manage to turn this very fun friendship and community-based game into something that pays you actual human dollars?
Honestly, it came from it started very much that it was just gonna be like a side hustle kind of thing, right? I knew I loved playing D&D. I've DM'd a whole lot. And at the time that I was starting it, I was a ballroom dance instructor. So I was just kind of like dipping my toe in the water with it. And then once our studio was going to close down, because the owner wanted more time with her kids, so I was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna go for this." Yeah, because something that I definitely learned as a ballroom dancer is if you want something, you just have to do it. You have to do it because no one's gonna do it for you. So I picked a game that I had played before and I posted online and I was like, who wants to give me money to play this? And I got lots of people that wanted to.
That is very, very cool, and you make it sound so much easier. I'm sure it actually is. How long, if you had to, like, I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this, how long did it take you to make it, like, financially feasible? Like, the world we're living in, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's pretty fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to earn enough to have a living. And I'm speaking as someone who, I didn't try like you did, and I didn't, like, focus my career on it like you did, but I at one time had a dream of, like, making a living off of being a good DM. And life is expensive. Like, when did it become, like, I don't know. I don't even know what to ask. Like, what kind of support system did you have that was telling you, like, you can do this? Like, take the time you need to make this financially feasible. Or, like, what kind of support did you need to make that happen?
So I'll be straight up with you. My husband makes good money, right? So when I first started this, I was, looking like I was going to be out of a job. We had my brother came to live with us, his brother came to live with us, and his brother was still in high school. So at that point, I was taking him to school, I was taking my brother to work. So it was like, it really wasn't feasible for me to get another job at that point. Um, And I'll tell you right now, it is not super, super, super great money because
Hmm.
it fluctuates very heavily um between, how much you're making. Because I'll be honest, some weeks, or you could have like a good stretch of $400 to $500 weeks. Some weeks you make $50 and you're
Hmm.
like, cool, we did something. Um, but the hardest thing, honestly, is just getting people into the games. Once you get them there, generally they stay, they have fun. Because I mean, there's a lot of perks that come along with being in a paid game, that I have enjoyed both as a player and as a DM, as opposed to joining free games just in your local community. Not that you shouldn't join local community games, still do that also.
Do both.
I really want to
Yeah.
stress that.
And I think what a lot of people don't know that you and I, Bobby, have talked a lot about is that we are both former educators. And I think
Mhm.
that has so much to do with this conversation. I should have brought that up right away. That I'm in the same boat. I feel like you and I are living parallel lives because I am a former educator who is married to someone who makes really good, steady money within like the infrastructure career field. And that was the only reason I could even afford to be an educator at the time when I met him and when we got together, because he made just enough money for us to live a comfortable life, and also made enough money that when I left education, or I haven't really technically left education altogether for my actual career, but when I decided to stop being specifically a teacher, that he was the one who could tell me that it was okay and that we would be all right, that we would be still be able to make, and we're lucky enough we have a mortgage and not rent. Like, we pay our bills and we still have some fun money. Like, it feels a little bit paycheck to paycheck, but actually we live a very privileged lifestyle because he works within a science and engineering and technical field that makes real money. And you and I, Bobby, are both former educators. And when you're an educator, you know that anything feels like good money compared to
Mhm.
education, especially when it comes to hours and mental energy spent. And I feel
Mhm.
like we both immediately bonded about that pretty fast when we met, that we were both former educators and that it translates extremely well to being a dungeon master or a game master.
Yeah. I would like to point out, though, how different our education was, though, because you work with children, correct? And I, being ballroom dance instructing,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more with the elderly. It's older clients. Um, but yeah, I definitely think having education backgrounds really helps as a DM because you're going to get patience, you're going to get, the ability to explain things in ways that make it a little bit easier for either new players or people who are just new to you to understand. Um, so I think it's definitely an added benefit if your DM is a previous instructor of some kind.
Yeah, it's almost like I compare being an educator, whether it be I was a, like you just said, like I was a strict like child, I was literally a teacher in a child kindergarten through 12 classroom kind of setting in special education setting, and being an educator regardless of age, gender, whatever, it teaches you skills like people skills, soft skills that are like very hard to translate to a resume but are so important in convincing people to lean into the arts, to lean into their passions, to find the thing that they're excited about, to find the thing that they're good at naturally, and to find the science within the thing. Like with ballroom dancing, it's not, it's a science, right? Like, that's how I saw education. Like, everything kind of boils
So,
down to like muscle memory or the science of it all. It all kind of is tapping into a part of the brain that is similar, and finding, being an educator is about finding that like point for someone, finding that one thing that they can latch onto and that they feel passionately about enough to delve into further, to like put in the
mhm.
work to discover.
So one thing that I think is vastly different in our two educations, something you mentioned, it's very much a science. For ballroom dancing, and something that I learned that stuck with me so much going into D&D that I think really helped me with newer players, is that when you're a dance instructor, no one comes to you to learn ballroom. Like, that's just how it is. They come there for connection. They come there for date night. They come there for socialization. And for me, whenever I moved into, the D&D field, new players aren't coming to learn how to play D&D. They're coming to join a community. They're coming to have friends. They're coming to tell stories and have fun. They're not coming to learn the math that goes into D&D.
You're so right. I wish I have time. Some of the times I wish this was a video podcast because everybody can see me and Melanie nodding hugely as you said that.
We're learning.
Because
I'm like taking
so
notes.
true. I've talked to so many of you all within the Knights of D20 about why you joined the Knights of D20, what drew you to this group. And it's not that we all want to learn and be better Dungeons and Dragons players. It's that we all came to this wanting to form a friend group that emphasized and prioritized emotional intelligence and communication and kindness and empathy and escapism, even just the ability to put yourself outside of your own life, outside of your own body, to leave your own real world experience to get somewhere else. And I think that's something we all have in common. I think that's what a lot of people bring to Dungeons and Dragons or to everything, to nerd culture. I think that's what people don't understand. If they're not a part of quote unquote nerd culture or like really just the fantasy genre or things that aren't real physically, to the imaginative artistic genres of life, people come to that because they want to practice mindfulness and empathy in a safe way. And I think that is so relatable to ballroom dancing or to all the arts and it's why I went from being a K through 12 educator to doing what I do now, because I wanted to help people explore the deeper parts of their psyche and to be more communicative with each other and to develop a community where they felt safe and where they could play and kind of escape all the things that we're all actively listening to this podcast to escape. I think that there's something really beautiful about the fact that we can actually make money from that endeavor, even if it's just a little bit of money. At least there's still enough of a market for it. There's obviously people who want this and want that experience of having connection with people and making friendships that are based on who they are as a person. I feel like we all in the Knights of D20 care about each other as people a lot deeply. But also we get to do that because we get to escape ourselves a little bit. Melanie, thoughts?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I guess my question to both of you as DMs is, how do you facilitate this emotional need that people, are bringing to the table? How do you facilitate an experience to fulfill that emotional desire that they're bringing?
So for me, that's a very easy answer. And it's something that I advise all new DMs with all the time. And that's that when you are struggling to think, how am I going to make my players happy? At the end of the day, your players are going to tell you exactly what kind of story they want. They're going to tell you exactly what they want out of the campaign. I mean, for example, if I look at Maraway, I made a character who was very emotional, very,
Right.
very guarded, very trying to be stronger than what he is right now. And that alone gives Kara so much to work with just in me making a character that is that way. And, all of my players, and that's why I tell all of my new players, I'm like, listen, the more you give me about this character, the more I can influence the story with them, the more I can bring them in, the more I can give you emotional moments to really bring this story together. So I mean, for me to facilitate it, it's just about listening to what people want and what they need, because they'll tell you, they just don't know that they're telling you it.
So, what happens if there are multiple people at the table and they have very different things that fulfill them? How do you balance that?
Well, I mean, I've had several campaigns where, you have one person who wants to tell a story, one person just wants to
Mhm.
fight and feel strong. But I mean, even then,
Exactly.
if all they want to do is fight, that immediately tells me that they want to feel powerful. They want to feel strong.
Mm.
They want to be a leader. They want to
Mm.
be feared, depending on how they make this character. It
Mm.
tells me what they want. And that, making someone feel powerful, especially in D&D, is not a difficult task. You give
Mhm.
them a damsel, be it a friend, a child, a village, just something that needs saving. And you
Yeah.
let them beat the crap out of someone to save them, and now everyone is in awe of them. And now they feel so powerful, and they have accomplished it through combat, not necessarily through roleplay if they're not that interested in
Right.
roleplay. And they still get that story.
Okay, so when you're coming to the table as a DM, you want to think about the why, like why people are gathering, and then deliver that through them to them through the story.
Hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
What about you, Kara?
I mean, he couldn't have said it better. Like, everybody, everybody, everybody who is willing to put in the difficult and awkward and almost, I don't want to say unnatural because it is the most natural thing, but compared to today's society, it is unnatural to play pretend as adults. It is unnatural to improv as adults. There's a reason people give a lot of shit to people who do improv. But
Yeah.
the people who are willing to put in that work are looking for something. And the kind of character they make, as long as you give them the space to be awkward and embarrassing and open and free and empathetic enough and self-reflective enough, if you set that standard of saying, I want your character to like mean something to you, and you can do that just by saying, I won't have characters who are just murder hobos. That's all I have to say, like, give me a character with a backstory and I'll give you a magic weapon. That's all I need. Like, you give me
Yeah.
a little bit of emotional intelligence and I'll give you back a lot mechanically in the game. And that's all people usually need to say, to kind of like let their guard down and give you a little bit more emotionally and be a little bit more open to vulnerability and embarrassment even, and be a little bit less guarded. Whatever I can do to help them get there, that's half the battle. Like, the pregame, the session 0 is half the battle for me to, and like Bobby
Hmm.
said, like, even if there's someone who just wants to be strong, fight, protect, kill the bad guy, protect my party, protect myself, get gold, that says something about a person. And I can help them say, why does your character, but it's really me saying, why do you think that
Mm-hmm.
that's the most important thing? And you don't have to force them into telling you that. Because as a good DM, you're empathetic enough to know that when someone just wants that, that's something that probably they want in real life and that they're missing in real life. And you can build a world. A good DM builds a world and builds a story that allows them to feel that much control and power and strength and soundness of decision making to help them really feel like they have potential. And that means a lot to a lot of people. I've learned that, like, I've learned a lot. Like, I've said 1,000 times, like, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons with my siblings, and my siblings and I are all very, very close. We grew up in an incredibly blissfully happy household that was very empathetic and kind and loving and supportive and open. And yet Dungeons and Dragons, when we all started playing D&D together as a way to explore our imaginations, I still find myself in my 30s to be learning about my siblings and what they would want for themselves in an alternate reality. And that's what you have to kind of like guide people into very gently and very kindly, but people are very willing to jump on board when you say, I want you to be the coolest, best person you can think of. You'd be amazed what you learn about what someone could see themselves as and who they want to be when you just give them that freedom to dream and to think big. When you say, be so extra. Like, if you can think of the coolest fucking person you could be, tell me who that is. And there's a fine balance of not embarrassing them when they say. You just say, "Fuck yeah, that's great. I love it. Let's go." People dig that. That's how you get a good D&D party who are invested in their characters, who are invested in the story. And then a good DM hears all of that first from their whole party and figures out a good world that would help those characters struggle and thrive and fight and love within a context that makes them feel strong.
There is one thing I do want to talk about really quick, in lines with like the player that just wants combat, because I think it's important to state that not all of them are like, I need to be strong story. There is a select bunch that are afraid of role playing. You know, it's something that's uncomfortable for them, and so to them, it's like, I'll do the math part of it and not the awkward part. And
They
I
want
feel
like
like,
a little video game mechanics,
yeah.
kind of. Yeah.
And I just think as a D&D community, we have got to be better at letting people be bad at roleplay when they first start and not making them feel like shit about it. You know, if they want to do the funny voice, let them. If they decide, 30 seconds in that, hey, that voice ain't working for me, forget I ever did it. Don't ever bring it up again. It's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Don't
Like,
shame them for trying. Yeah.
yeah. This community could be so much if people would just let people grow in it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably, and I mean, to be sure, I've now seen, I feel like, both extremes of the spectrum. I started with family groups, with friend groups, in-person groups, no strangers, just not even a gaming store experience. I started with siblings and friends and family who were like, we're all nerdy theater kids and musical kids, so we were all willing to like be really good at role play and doing our best to get into the emotional depth of it. And then I came to Dion Rising, who are also all people who were coming here for people who were well-rounded. We have a lot of people who are really good at combat, who are really here for the min-maxing, and yet are still willing to grow and learn and dig into the roleplay part. I have not yet, weirdly enough, been with a group that was super combat or just min-maxy oriented. I have friends who have played in my groups that I've DM'd who are less comfortable with the role play stuff, and who have straight up said that from the beginning. Like, even during character creation, they were like, I'm not good at this part of it. Like, I'm good at the combat, I'm good at understanding the stats and how to make my character the strongest possible character and how to level up as fast as possible, but I'm not good at the role play stuff or the story stuff. Like, I'm not even good at taking notes or keeping track of who the big bad evil guy is. So I've had players like that, but I've also had, even in those games, I've had players who could balance them and help them along the way. So I don't have a lot of experience with people who, or groups, whole groups, who are very much just min-max combat players. So I think that's where it probably differs. I've never been a professional DM. This is the closest I've been to quote-unquote professional DMing. And this is a group that is not like the typical group. This is a group of D&D players who are very serious about D&D and who play it as a game, but who play it as if the game is half role play as opposed to all stats. So
yeah, I mean, I as a role player, I feel like I had such a great sit down with Kara when we first started, and I'm like, hey, listen, I am totally willing to kneecap my character if it makes for a better story. So if I need to like be really bad at something, just let me know and I will kill that stat immediately.
yeah, and I have, and to be fully frank, the people who I've played with, who have been in my groups that I've DM'd, who are less comfortable with the role play, are people who had only ever played with other men. They've never had a female in their group, nonetheless a female DM, who have never they've never interacted with or watched or experienced D&D that wasn't very crunchy, stat heavy. Like, they're very like Pathfinder kind of players and crunchy game players. So and they were also, as they came into my groups and as I was setting up these different groups that I've been playing with, when I invited them to play and asked and told them like what I was expecting for the story and like maybe even what module I was playing. Like I think my first time that I DM'd, I was playing I ran a Wild Mount campaign, which is the Matt Mercer campaign, like the Critical Role world. And coming off of just watching Critical Role, I had high expectations. I was like, oh, I am into how Matt Mercer and Laura Bailey and Ashley and Marisha and Liam, I was so into how they play. So I don't think I even ever have, and now I'm a big fan of like the Brennan Lee Mulligans and the Abria campaigns, like, which are all so character and story based. So I don't think I have like any experience, really, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't have any experience with groups that are super just crunchy combat groups who don't roleplay and don't play in character. I just can't imagine a campaign where people don't have fun, interesting characters, even if it's just who they are to the max. Like I have friends who play who are just, I was just like, be you, but as a rogue.
But more.
And that works. That works. That's usually when I have players, like my friends who I'm talking about, when I have players who were like, I'm super uncomfortable with roleplay, I'm like, that's fine. Play as yourself, but as a rogue.
Yeah.
And they did, and it works. And it fucking works because they're also interesting people. And it still gives them a chance to play in a world and roleplay in a way that they wouldn't be able to in real life.
And on the flip side of that, I have had players that are great role players that cannot keep up with the mechanics of it in any way, shape, or form. I had a lady in one of my campaigns. It was like my first campaign I ever ran. It was with all my friends, and some of our roommates and their families. And bless her heart, she could not get the mechanics, but she role played a character that was so just like out of it and had no idea what was going on. She was so disty that it just worked.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun because instead of getting like frustrated and like discouraged that she didn't know the rules, she just played with it. She had fun with the fact that she had no idea what was happening. And turned out, like, I think I ran 3 campaigns for them, and all 3 of her characters were just so fucking funny every single time.
And that's realistic, isn't it? Like, sometimes people just don't know what the fuck's going on. Or how things work. And that's real life. If I know anything, it's that's real.
Yeah, I remember, like, our first time we leveled up to level 2, right? And I'm explaining to her, like, you need to go home, get some more spells, and she comes back, and instead of having, like, more first level spells as you would in level 2, she shows up with a bunch of, like, second level spells and, like, first level spells. And I'm like, one, you grabbed Layman's Tiny Hut, which no new player ever takes. So I'm very proud of you for that, for picking utility. But unfortunately, that's not gonna happen as well for you.
Yeah, like, it's really easy for me to accidentally say, like, D&D is a lot. Like D&D, I talk all the time about how Dungeons & Dragons is legitimately therapeutic, that roleplay in general, and, I mean, it's theater kid shit, like, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, it's an exercise in empathy, and Dungeons & Dragons does that, and not a lot of people have experience in that. And so that, me saying that as often as I do, can very quickly scare people away from it. People who think, like, I don't have any practice in empathy, or I don't have any, like, self-awareness, or I am awkward, or I'm not practiced in pretending or acting, or 1,000 different things. But it's not that deep. I need to get better as a person at saying, it's not that deep. Like, you don't even have to roleplay. You can play as yourself. You can also just play as someone who wants to fight. That's a good way to play.
I feel like there's, and I don't remember where I talked about this, but the Matt Mercer effect. Matt Mercer for me is a very complicated person in the D&D community, because on one hand, he is so good about, like, calling out new DMs and telling them they're doing great. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't do the funny voices, you are doing great. But at the same time, there is this precedent that newer D&D players who have only experienced, like, Critical Role or Dimension 20, they now are coming into this thinking that every DM is going to be like Matt Mercer. And it is okay if, as a DM, you're new at this, you can just say the barkeeper gives you your change. The barkeeper gives you this information. Like, it is a growing thing. It is okay to have a starting point. And you are going to find a group that is like, yeah, you are a new DM, but at least I'm not having to DM, and they're going to totally roll with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And through that, you're going to gain all these new skills, this confidence in doing silly voices and doing different characters. And, it is a lot, but there is something, I think I talked about it with Melanie on Tea Time once, is that if you don't know a rule, that is okay, because there is someone in your group who does. And if there's one thing that nerds love doing, it's telling you
Some
what they
nerdy guy
know.
at the table. Yeah.
There will
Look
be
it up.
someone who is so excited to tell you everything they know about this topic that you're not quite sure what it is. And no one at the table is going to look down on you because the rules lawyer helped you. They're going to be like, thank that guy. He's awesome. Let's keep going.
Yeah. I've said multiple times that as a DM, I am less instructed about the rules than my players are. Like, 9 out of 10 times, if you guys ask me about a rule, I just questionably think. I look like I'm thinking long enough for Bobby or Dane. Question. And that's
Exactly.
And I think it's
every campaign I've ever had, I'm like, someone will be able to Google this faster than I can, and I'm Googling it.
Yeah.
But 9 out of 10 times, someone else knows the answer, and I'll just think long enough for someone else to tell me what sounds correct. Or I just say, like literally, logistically, in physical space and time, I know what sounds right. So I'll guess it from there.
And it's
It's
like,
okay
I
to know
don't,
the
like,
rules.
newer players, newer DMs, don't be intimidated by people like myself who
know
like,
the
I
things.
studied these rules. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just I read the book once. I have studied the rules. I have studied the classes. I have studied things because I knew when I got into this, I wanted to work with new players because I love watching someone start the campaign nervous about roleplay, and then by the end of the campaign they're in a full character voice, they're feeling great. That is the greatest feeling for me as a DM. Not even like, them doing some cool shit. It's watching the person blossom into someone who's confident in this world that they want to be a part of.
Yeah. Hey, Bobby.
Yeah.
So you selected me to be a DM. And
I did.
I feel exactly what you've just said is accurate to selecting me, because all along the way, I auditioned to be the DM of Dion Rising. So anybody who thinks that they can't DM or that they shouldn't DM or that it's too hard, you're wrong. It's not that hard. Especially if you have a good party. The hardest part of being a good DM is finding good people to play with you. But I came into this, I was not a very experienced DM. I was certainly not the most experienced DM or the most long-term DM that you guys had auditioned. And you guys were very transparent about asking me what my weak points were and what my growth points were and what I saw that I wanted to improve for myself. And you guys were also very clear and transparent about what you wanted me to improve upon to be the DM for this very fun, very great, incredible group of D&D players. Like, I feel so lucky to have this is what I've always wanted in a D&D group, is this group that you built here. These players that we've selected together all have such incredible strength and passion for the game and for imagination and for play. And I don't know, I just want you to talk more about that. I feel like we've come this far. We're going up to the second act of Dion Rising, and you guys have given me so much solid feedback and freedom to grow and be better. What do you think really makes a great DM? Like, I don't have the experience of lots of people. I've only been playing D&D for 5 years. Like, literally, I've only played D&D for 5 years. And I've been a DM for most of that, but that does not mean I've been a good DM. I've been a DM for my friends. That is very different than being a good DM. So I'm not asking you to compliment me. I want you to tell the people what it actually takes to grow and be a fun DM for people.
Yeah, so I want to start by talking about what it was about you that made me pick you, right? Because
Oh,
again, you
please.
weren't the most experienced, you weren't, the most knowledgeable of the rules,
Mm-hmm.
but you had one thing that none of the other DMs that we auditioned had. Um, and that's saying a lot because we auditioned a lot.
You did.
And I'm surprised that none of them had this special feature. And that was that you just had so much joy. You absolutely had joy in playing this game. And it was infectious. We started in this one shot that you did. Even not knowing the rules, you wanted us to have fun, and it never felt like you were trying to impress us. It felt like you were just having fun in this little adventure that you created, and we got to be a part of it. And for me, that was the determining factor of she is the one, is that you had joy. Whereas so many of the other DMs that we auditioned, it was very much like, let me show you how good I am. It wasn't like it never felt like a joyous experience for them. Um, and like whenever I do get to be a player, that is what I look for, is DMs that have fun. Because if your DM is having fun, your players are going to have fun because we're a team. It's not us against you. If you're a new DM and you think you should be against the players, no, don't
Mm-mm.
do that.
Mm-mm,
No one's
honey.
going to have fun.
No, ma'am.
But you my favorite saying about you, how I described you to the rest of the group after we did our one shot, whenever I was like, hey, we need to get her in for the whole group to see, is I said she is so down to clown. And I still say that about you. You are down to clown. It doesn't matter what we want to do. You're happy to do it. And I think about like when Zada's doing crazy stuff, it never feels like it's a burden on you. Whenever I'm doing, I'm being Marway and I'm stupid and I'm not doing the things that you want me to do, it never feels like I am a burden to you. You are just having fun and feeling the joy of the game. And for me, that was absolutely what sent you so far above everyone else, is just the joy. So like, to me, what makes a good DM is joy. You have to enjoy what you're doing.
That also makes a good player. Thank you. First of all,
Mhm.
thank you. That was very kind. And I feel like you've probably said that, especially when we were still in the process of choosing me. I'm sure that's what you told me in the first place. I've just forgotten it in the time since then.
Tell me
However,
again. Why don't you
yeah,
remind
why don't you
me?
compliment me forever? No, but that makes so much sense, and it's so aptly said that that's also, you chose me when we had half the party already set. We were still looking for, at this point, 3 out of 6 players. And from then on, I just talked about in the last episode that we auditioned. By the time I joined, I know you and Dane auditioned a lot of people, but by the
Mhm.
time I joined, we auditioned a lot of great people, like
Mhm.
very few duds. And we were being extremely picky by that point about who we chose. And most of the time, it came down to, did they seem like they were having fun and
Mhm.
and leaning in to the rest of the group. And we were all playing different characters. We were all trying out different vibes. I was doing every single one shot I was doing during those auditions was very different, like with the vibe. We did some that were silly, goofy, very like Kara coded. I do a lot of lighthearted, silly, funny, comedic things. And you guys asked me to be dark and scary.
Yes.
And I did that. And that was a good way for us to see what other people could bring to the table. And even those dark and dreary things ended up being very funny depending on who we were auditioning, i.e.,
Mhm.
Melanie, who I think her first audition or her second, one of her auditions was during it was sort of more of a dungeon delvey. It was one of the ones you guys asked me to be really to bring the darkness, to bring the
This was your first
scary.
audition with the whole group. Yes.
Yeah, you asked me to be more scary, more dark, and Melanie came into that one, and that was the one where Melanie's character could not stop trying to jump over the 10-foot gap and kept missing. Burned everything in her arsenal
Everything.
and still failed. She ended up needing to be told.
I literally had to save her with at that time I don't even think Huthamer was a rabbit. It was a phoenix. It was like I think Hearth was my wildfire spirit and I had to save her
Yeah.
from falling.
Yep. Yep.
To me, I can tell
Mhm.
you that was the exact moment that
That
I
we
knew
knew that
she
she was
was
in.
the one.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
this was the funniest shit I feel like I have
Yes.
ever seen, and I am so upset that it is not recorded so I
The
could watch it
fact
again.
the fact that I was trying my damnedest because you guys said my first audition was silly, funny, lighthearted, mazes, silly heist, very fun, very
Wedding.
easy. Wedding. You had a wedding at the end. My first
Yeah.
audition was me as a person. And then you guys
Mhm.
were like, bring the darkness, show us that you have depth. And I was like, I got this. But we brought Melanie in, who spent half an hour trying to jump across a gap, which if she had failed just once, she would have still been fine because there was a whole nother layer of the
Moment.
and that's also when I
was
knew.
the only thing I needed. I was like, I need to get over this.
She said, if I don't make it over this gap, they will not choose me. But I knew by the third time she tried, and that was the third out of 9 times that she tried, to just
Like
make
all
a
the
simple
luckies
jump.
burned.
I
Oh
was
my
like all
goodness.
3.
Constant nat 1s, nat 2s, nat 3s. I think, and we
something I wanna
were
point
all
out.
belly laughing, and yet it
Yes.
still did not take away from the depth of the overall campaign. It was the chef's kiss. I truly wish we had recorded that session.
Yes, it's my biggest regret so far with the stream is that specific session wasn't recorded. But I want to point out when it comes to like being a good player, good DM, is with Melanie, what really sold it isn't that she kept messing up. It's that she was having fun messing up.
Yes, yes.
And it just that to me is the key for finding a good D&D group is joy.
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying it, what are you doing?
Yeah. Every round, Melanie, you were trying to find something new to do. Every round was different. And you were, well, we were all, but you were leading us in laughing. If you had been angry, if you had been trying to give up, if you had just gave up and said, someone transport me. Like, I think, Bobby, you started offering, like, I could just teleport you. And she was like, no, no, no.
And you're like, no.
Which, chef's kiss. It was fantastic. That was one of the most fun one-shots I have ever led in my life.
And like I don't mean to throw Melanie under the bus or make her feel embarrassed in any kind of way, but I'm going to.
We talk about this all the
Like,
time. It's fine.
in terms of an audition, the role play, she came in with this southern accent.
I know.
And it was so bad.
I was so vulnerable. I was trying so hard, guys. I was trying to put myself out there.
And listen, we talked to her like so gently. We're like, Melanie, I just really don't know if that accent's gonna work for the
I
stream.
know.
We love the character. We hate the accent.
I know. I was trying.
And so, like,
guys.
and I bring that up because I want to point out that with both of your auditions specifically, like you both had things that people would think would be deal breakers. You know, Kara
Mhm.
wasn't super well versed in the rules. Melanie's role play was questionable in that moment.
Mhm.
But their personalities just shone through. And I mean, it's like we gave both of them like, hey, try doing this instead. And they took the notes and they just made such incredible things happen with them. Like both of you are so receptive to criticism and it's so great to work with people who you can be like, hey, I have this idea. You could try this, you know? And with the same lines, y'all have given me so much that I feel like
Yeah.
has really helped with Maraway being, you know, such a loved character.
Yeah, that's a feature, I think, not of me and Melanie, but of a group that you and Dane, as the founders of the group, and you and Dane and Robin, as the founders of this group, you were so picky in the best way of finding people who are, like you said, down to clown, people who are receptive to feedback. Like the people we said no to, by the time I joined, at least, the people we said no to, even if they took feedback in a kind and empathetic way, did not show us that they would enact that feedback. They were great players. They were incredible. They, even if they knew the rules, knew how to role play, they didn't necessarily like, they could take the feedback and they would try. They did their best to change what they were doing for their second audition, but they weren't able to really like live within that feedback, to really like lean the opposite direction. And I think that's what all of us as players, and I'm a player too as a DM, that's what all of us as players have in common, is that we all are like incredibly flexible. We picked a group who is, we're all constantly, those of you who aren't in our Discord don't know how often we're all like, please be mean to me. Please bully me and tell me what I'm doing wrong. And we're all like, you're doing everything correctly. And we're like, lies.
And it's like, there was a moment I remember early on where I just felt like Kara was being so nice to Marway because he was so sweet. And I literally had to sit down with her and I'm like, hey, listen, you really need to like crit hit me or something. You need to like really fuck Marway up because I haven't taken damage and we're like 8 sessions in and we've had so much combat. I'm like, you need to rip the Band-Aid off, hit real hard, and just get it out of the way. Because I was like, we need to get to the point where Kara can be mean to us.
Yeah. And I think...
And we're there now.
Yeah, and I think part of us all communicating, we are a very communicative group for Dungeons and Dragons. I have all my different family and friend and personal and in-person and online campaigns that I run or that I'm playing in, who we don't talk about D&D outside of D&D time. We don't like think this in depth about how we're interacting as a group, how the DM is making our stories move along. But part of being a streaming group, it changes things. And we've talked about this before, me and Melanie, about how like it's very different the way I run this group than the way I run my home groups. Like because of the work that we've all put in, right? We've all put in some fucking time into developing these characters, into just getting to know each other as people in the real world. I mean, it's different. It's very different running a streaming group that's being... We're producing this for the public. Like, this is first and foremost for us, the 7 of us as people. We are all doing this for each other and for ourselves. And we have this weird parasocial friendship that is one of the most healthy things that I've had in my life. But it's incredibly different than how I run my home groups, where if I kill one of their characters, it's fine. And if their characters don't get along, it's fine, because it's not that serious. We take this very seriously because we're doing this not just for ourselves. Most of us are doing this for ourselves. We all wanted a Dungeons and Dragons group that would meet consistently, that would follow a really fun, entertaining, emotionally invested storyline. That's most of our first priority, but none of my other groups also have the added benefit and added pressure of having an audience. So I'd like to delve into that a little bit. It's different. The way I'm working as a DM is deeply different since we have an audience. And we don't have a big audience. We are not popular. But we have incredible, wonderful friends and fans who watch us and who are invested in us. And that feels like I feel so privileged. I feel famous because we have 4 or 5 people who watch us every Monday. And I feel the additional pressure of that a little bit. And I'm sure you all do too. I'm just setting up the world for you all, but you guys are the characters that they love.
Do you remember our first live stream when I was like hyperventilating? I was shaking. I was in such a panic. And I was like, guys, I am so scared right now. And I just remember like, and then I think it was like JP, he's just like, me too. Just like so calm, so cool, collected. I'm
because
just like,
JP is the calmest and coolest collected person who's ever lived. He's always like, I'm awkward, and I'm like, shut up, no, you're
Yeah, it's like you are the least
Lies.
awkward person. He's so suave. Like if I had to pick
He's
like a
so
word for him, he's
suave.
so suave.
He's so suave.
But yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
think the audience, it gives it something extra. You know, it's like
Yeah.
whenever I want to do something unhinged, it's not just a moment of like, oh, I'm just gonna do it because I'm a player. It's like Morrowind would not do this. So
Yeah.
I cannot do that to the people who genuinely love this character. And it just I feel like it means so much to have people that love a character that I that means so much to me. You know, I've talked about before how I'll listen to music and I'm just crying thinking about Morrowind and future characters, and just to have people that genuinely care about them, it means a lot.
Yeah, Melon, do you feel any of that pressure, or when we stream? I don't know. For some reason, in my head, like Bobby, I freaking hear you because that's how I feel every time. But there are a few people in our group who I feel like I do not see. If you feel any pressure about the fact that we are live for an audience, you do not feel it. And I think that's Melanie and John Paul and Robin. I think the three of you are so calm, cool, and collected, and like
Mhm.
somehow the three of you manage to compartmentalize, and probably more than that, but I don't know. I just feel like me and Bobby and Royal and Dane all kind of like are constantly performing. I feel like the rest of you are just so naturally charismatic and calm and collected.
What?
It makes me think that sometimes you guys forget that we are live in front of an audience. I don't know. What do you feel that way? Do you think when we're playing, do you think about the fact that we're being watched? Do you have the live First of all, do you have the live stream up when we're playing to see how many people are watching?
I do have the live stream up, not to see how many people are watching, but for two reasons. And I will say the number one reason why I have the live stream up is because I know Dane is going to DM me if I move like too far to the left or the right or like too far up and down. He'd be like, "Can you shift over?" Get
No,
That is
I want to
the
be this far away.
For anyone who doesn't do like a stream type setting, that is the realest answer. I have it up so strongly so I can see where I am
I
on my
have to make
camera.
every map 50 by 50. I can't let us have a big battlefield because Dane's like, no, I can't.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to stay in frame or Dave's gonna yell at me. So that's reason number one.
Okay.
Reason number two is I try to interact with the chat if I see somebody say something. I want to, because I think that's part of
The charm.
why people like watching Dungeons and Dragons on Twitch is the chat interaction and feeling like you can interact with the people who are playing. So I do think that is a big part of it. And so I do try to prioritize, like when somebody says anything in chat, I try to at least somewhat respond.
Yeah.
To let them know, like, hey, I see that and I want to respond to you live and let you know that I see what you're saying. Because I think
totally
that
agree.
is a big part of the fun. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one reason I keep us up live.
Mhm.
Is because I know as someone who watches D&D streams, I'm like, I love it if they're also active in the chat. And I feel
Exactly.
like they're part of the game.
I think yeah.
And we have
Other than-
right now we have a small enough group of followers that I'm like,
Exactly.
okay, I can
It's
actually
safe.
keep up.
Yeah. It's safe and
Shout
you
out
can
to Immortal
respond to
Ambitions.
everybody.
I
know.
Hashtag Immortal Ambitions, thank you.
Thank you, baby.
Straight up shout out to our main followers.
Listen,
Thank
she's
you.
a player of mine
And
who's
Card
in
Trick.
like
Card Trick.
Card
Trick. We
Trick.
love her. Thank you.
And then we just had a new one that's been like really hardcore. It's something. Is it like Frost Wolf? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Frosthound?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Frosthound?
Yep.
Frost
Frosthound.
Hound. That's what
Yep.
F-Hound. Yes.
Frosthound, yeah.
Yeah.
F-Hound,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Love.
Genuine deep shout out. That's who I like. It's hard for I can only imagine how hard it is as a player when you're trying to play in your next round of combat. But I'm a DM. It's hard for me to. I have a lot of windows open. It's hard for me to switch over to the Twitch chat But when I see people popping off about something that just happened, I just want to get in there and talk to them because I'm so excited. Or like the one time every 4 weeks that I managed to get on the YouTube and check out the comments, I'm like, oh, I just love that people love this as much as I do.
Yeah. It's so fun.
It's so exciting. And I'm not someone who is like super invested in becoming D&D famous. I'm super invested in bringing people into D&D and transparently bringing like more like queer they thems femmes into D&D and making it a really inclusive and close-knit community. And I feel like right now we have this really beautiful close-knit community that I just adore. And it's
Can I just say, I just want to go on a slight tangent real quick on similar lines of what you did.
That's what this podcast is about.
So, for the longest time growing up, I only played as like female characters for pretty much anything, you know, because like in my mind, I didn't want to be a male because they didn't align with me. They weren't, you know, they didn't really represent me very well. And D&D, I credit with being what got me into playing male characters again. Because, you know, it's such an easy way for us to jump into something, and it's a fantasy, you know. There's no, I don't have to, I know with you being my DM, I don't have to worry if I'm playing a gay character that I'm about to be called, you know, an F word. You know, I don't have to worry about all this discrimination about, you know, like, oh, if I want to have like a male character who's like a noble, no, you can't do that because you have to produce heirs. Like, that's not going to be a thing in these communities. And so it's opened up this beautiful world where I can see myself in the characters versus just trying to pick something that slightly resembles what I want.
Yeah.
So you can make it your own versus these like pre-scripted.
Because normally, you know, I would be like, I want to be a female character because then if I see a guy, I can romance him and it's not weird. But, you know, D&D has really opened up the fact that I can be a guy and romance whoever the fuck I want. And it's awesome and fun because I'm a huge romance fan in D&D. Morrowind has been such a difficult challenge for me, being so young and innocent.
Not being able to romance anybody you want.
Oh my goodness, it's been the biggest challenge. And because normally
I keep throwing all these sexy devils and handsome guards at you, and you're like,
oh my gosh. Y'all, I wish y'all could see or hear the chats I have with Kara after those sessions where I'm just like, you just had to make him hot, didn't you? Because I'm like, I can't act on this with Morrowind.
I'm also a huge sucker for a romance. That's why I'm so obsessed with Zada and his lion love. I cannot. I don't know why. I'm like hyper focused on that.
I think there's this incredible. I don't know. Okay, like I'm a huge romance girl. Like I am a rom-com girly.
Yes.
And I think I love the vibes going on with Dion Rising so much because the typical rom-com would have like you and Killian and Eidos being like the rom-com people, the love triangle, or like the ones who are seducing everybody, all the NPCs, and yet that's not what's happening, and that's glorious and beautiful. Like the fact that Seraphina is this like kinky BDSM chains and whips kind of princess. The fact that Killian has shown no emotional investment in anybody. The fact that Eidos is like angry when people that Morrowind is so innocent and pure. He doesn't understand what's happening. Bula is like, no, thank you. Everybody's weird. And Zada is like, stop. Every time someone flirts with him,
stop asking me about it.
There's this like weird. I mean, it's like I feel like it's the closest we can get to reality. Like I'm so used to the prescribed rom-com series of events and stereotypes that no matter what I throw at you all will negate that, which is exactly what happens in real life, right? You will all say like, no. No. I will give you handsome guard, but you will say, Bye.
Gotta get my hair done.
Gotta go. Who's your stylist?
Emergency, I gotta go.
I will say no to you, but I will handcuff the bad guy and kiss them a little.
Listen, if you have played D&D for a long time and you haven't tried to handcuff at least one villain sexually, have you really played D&D?
What are you doing? Truly. I'd be very disappointed if none of you had done anything weird and sexual.
I fell for like 3 different main villains back to back to back in one campaign with one of my bards. And that's how we started identifying that they were villains. It's like, oh
What's
shit,
a
is he
villain
hot? Yeah. Oh, he's a
sexy?
bad guy.
If I
Right.
can't trick you without making them sexy, I don't know any of the tricks. If they're ugly, you're gonna think they're bad. If they're sexy, question mark?
They're gonna be bad in quotations.
Bad. My end goal as a DM is to make you all evil.
So on
It's already
that topic,
started.
I wanna
Zada's
bring it
happened.
back to professional DMing with
Mhm.
romance.
Mm-hmm.
Let
Oh,
me
yes.
tell you something.
Please. Oh.
I have had to add into my session zeros with all my players that I am okay doing romance with them, but I will not do sex scenes because I had a player who I did not know
No.
who wanted to do this crazy sex scene and wanted me to
What?
act it out with them, and I'm
No.
like, this is
No.
really weird. I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. I don't care that you gave me money to be here.
It's not that kind of roleplay.
No.
That's so
I'm like, I
weird.
literally told them if that's what you want, there's this really cool game called Vampire. It's like, do you know what I'm
do
talking
that.
about?
Yep.
That is
What's
literally the point of
Vampire?
that game. Girl, we'll have
It's
to talk
a
after.
it's a sexy roleplay with its own mechanics for roleplay.
It is
But
a
it's weird
roleplay
because
game
it's
where
like,
it's kinky.
because like you're in public with other people
Yeah.
Yes.
watching you roleplay, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
not been a paid DM, but the fact that I started playing with siblings, with family, obviously made me say like, romance is okay. I don't care who you are. Don't lie. Romance is exciting. Romance
I
is
love it.
everybody wants a romance story. Everybody wants a romance story. And they
Mhm.
can look different ways. And the best romances fade to black at the exact right moment. I will never, ever, with strangers, with family, with anybody, I will never not fade to black for a romance scene at the correct moment. You can roleplay the romance without roleplaying the sex. I'm not a sex scene girly. I'm sorry. I'm sure you can find a D&D group or a Vampire Rising group or whatever who will roleplay explicitly, verbally the sex scene. But I am a girl who thinks that with two different things, with horror, with like fear and horror and scary genres, and with romance and sex, a fade to black is better than explicitly describing it can ever be. It's just
what you
there's
don't
no
see
good way to
is
do it.
almost always better than what you do.
Yes.
Because let
Yeah.
your mind take it.
Yes.
And my
Just to
little
leave
tip
it to
and trick,
imagination. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, my tip for new DMs, if you run into this problem, do your fade to black, and if they want to know, but how do I know if I did good? Make them roll performance.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And then you can say like, yeah, she had a fantastic time. Multiple times. If they rolled a nat 20, you say, yeah, multiple times she was screaming. Like the people in the upstairs rooms heard how good a time you had. That is so much sexier than trying to describe the physicality of what happened in that room.
Right.
Have the report. There's 1,000 ways to make romance fun and exciting and still be friends at the table. Because that's what it comes down to. I don't want my friends at the table to feel like anybody was assaulted by anybody else mentally. Gross. But there are so many ways to make everybody at the table feel like that was a fun time. That was great. Everybody had fun. And I feel like that's my favorite thing about Serafina. We're always like, oh yeah, she tied him up with her special ropes. Dean, what's Marway doing?
Something I love about her, though, is I do feel, as we're getting into this, that Serafina might be a bit of a tease. Because we always hear about her tying people up, and then she just walks away when she's had her fun.
We
Like,
always
that's
hear
all it is.
she's fresh as a daisy in the morning. She does not look hungover. And that's so good. It's so good. I think we talked about this last episode. We talked about this in the context of being afraid, that the imagination can do more than what I as a DM can ever describe. Leave it to their imagination. Their imagination will fill in the gaps, and it'll be better than anything I could say. It's the same with sex. I mean, leave it to the imagination. What happened? I don't know. They went into a room together. They both came out disheveled and tired and with a special glow. What happened in between? I don't know. You tell me. Who could know?
New DMs. On that line, new DMs. If you're ever like, oh shit, I need to like fill a good space of time and you need a bad guy for them to fight, but you have nothing prepared, just start vaguely describing literally anything. And then your players will be like, oh god, it's a werewolf. It is now. It sure is. You are correct. Let them fill in what is scaring them.
Let
And
your
they always will.
players tell you what they're afraid of. Leave it to the imagination. Drop breadcrumbs, even if you don't know where they're going to land. And then let your party perseverate on them. And you'll end up with the correct answer. It's the best way to be a DM. Just, if I had to give any advice to being a dungeon master, based on the fact that I have had exactly one bad dungeon master and many great dungeon masters, listen to what your party is saying and give them space to communicate with each other and listen when they're talking to each other. Because if you're not doing that, you're never going to know what they want. They will tell you what they want. They will tell you what they think is the big bad evil guy. They will tell you what they think their next step should be in the mystery that you're trying to lay out for them. Be flexible. Have a backup plan and a backup plan. Because if they decide that this is the correct answer to the mystery they're following, at some point, there's only so much you can do to lead them back to where you are trying to take them.
I would like to correct something you just said, because I think it's important to, is you said have a backup plan. I would correct that to train yourself to not need a backup plan. Be flexible, because if you spend so much time hyperfixating on what can I do? Where can I put this? How many? I need to have this set and this set and this and this, and then something doesn't go to plan, you're going to be in panic mode. As a new DM, it can be very daunting, the thought of just going with it. But just do it. Just trust yourself enough. And if you have a bad combat encounter because you picked the wrong thing, oh well, you had a bad combat encounter. Move on.
Yeah.
It is okay. It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah,
it's
he's
fine.
exactly right. Let a dead end be a dead end for your party. Like when I say have a backup plan, that's it. And end it there. You can have a backup plan, but eventually you have to say, like, if they're chasing a dog up the wrong tree, find a way to say, like, nope, nothing there. Get them back on track for what you wanted. They are following the wrong set of clues. They are making shit up that you did not lay out. Let nothing be nothing and lead them back to what you wanted them to say, to find in the first place.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Don't be afraid to tell your players no. Don't be afraid to look at your players and say, hey guys, you're not on the right track, and this is not going to go anywhere. Because what that's going to do, exactly how I just said. I've had parties where
you
hey
just
guys,
straight up
this
say
isn't
it.
it.
Okay.
This isn't it. I know
Keep it
y'all paid for
moving.
this, and I don't want you just rolling investigation checks for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. Let them roll 3 investigation checks and then say there is nothing. This is a tree with some grass.
It's done.
There is
I've had
especially
times
when
where,
they roll a nat 20, you say there's nothing.
Yeah, I've had
Trust
times
me.
where, I know that they are paying for an experience, and
Yeah.
nobody wants to just sit going through and not finding anything. Where they'll like want to explore this whole mansion. I'm like, roll me one flat investigation check, and that's going to be for the whole mansion. We do not need to go room by room.
We're not going in the mansion.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to go through every single room. And as
Yeah.
a DM, feel empowered to say, this house ain't shit. There ain't nothing here. It's move it
an
along. It is
empty, dusty
'cause-
house. Nothing.
yeah.
Yep.
Or if you just need a little extra, the house is haunted. Make them fight ghosts.
Yeah.
There you go.
And if they roll,
Make
and
it
if
up.
they roll a 3, say, you know that you're not doing a great job investigating, but you feel like there's nothing here.
Absolutely.
You just really, it's not that hard to tell people there's nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
And then
be careful with words,
immediately
like,
when they follow another lead, you give them everything. You say, "Oh yeah, you found some
Everything.
footprints," or "Oh fuck yeah, you found some blood splatters," or whatever. You give immediately
Yeah,
once
be
they
careful
start
with word-
along the right
sorry.
track. You say, "Yep, good job."
Yeah, be careful with wording. Like, there doesn't seem to be anything there, because you better believe every other player is about to come in there and make their own
Mhm,
investigation
mhm.
checks. Tell them flat out, there's nothing.
Yeah, even on a nat 3, you say, even though you're not looking that closely, you know that there's nothing here. It is an empty field.
Because, I mean, if you've got the whereabout to create something cool in this area that didn't have anything, go for it. Make something cool. Make a secondary storyline that just comes out of nowhere. Don't even know where it's going to go. Just give them something and they will drive this train somewhere.
Mhm.
Just be ready to improv that. Be ready to just pull things out of your ass. Because, in my opinion, the best skill a DM can have, even over roleplay, even over knowing the rules, is being adaptable. You have to be able to adapt to the situation as it's happening and not be afraid to do it.
So Bobby, I want to ask. I have not had the experience of DMing for quote unquote bad players, which me and Melanie have talked about what makes someone not a great D&D player. But neither of us have had to dungeon master for people who cannot follow the exact kind of clues you and I are describing. Have you had to DM and without blowing up your career? Can you tell us a little bit about
Tell us. Spill the
I
tea on
can.
this.
Give us some tea.
So when I think about bad players, I'll be honest, there are 2 players that I have had in my paid campaigns that come to mind. One of which was a guy who was actively running the campaign that we were playing, right?
Oh, like a
So it was
backseat
well beyond the
driver?
Witchlight. Do what?
Like backseat driver?
Well, no, he was DMing it for a different
Oh,
group,
I'm
but he
sorry.
wanted to be
Okay.
a player in it
Oh,
also.
so he knew
So
it.
it's like
He
he
knew the
knew. Yeah,
story.
he knew what was happening.
He was
So I was like,
metagaming.
okay. So I was like, I can work with this. Here's what we're gonna do. Your character has done all of this before, and your whole party died in the last fight, and you just woke up where you were 2 weeks ago. And then I changed parts of the game, so it was like the memories were there, but nothing was exactly how he remembered it.
Oh.
But we ran into an issue where they were going up to a hag, him at level 2, okay? Level 2, going into
A
a
little
hag's house, and
baby.
he
Just a bit.
initiated the combat, knowing exactly what this hag was capable of. And immediately, the whole party got downed. But Bambi specifically was in this campaign,
Bambi.
and she
Bambi.
did not go into the fight. So I gave her the hardest, coldest thing I've ever done to a player as a DM. Is I took every one of the players that was there and I lined them up unconscious, and the hag told her that she could have her party back except for one person, and she had to pick who died.
And that's such a reward for her for not going into it, that she gets to pick who
Yeah.
fucked this
Oh no,
up.
she hated it. It was definitely not a
100%.
reward, and I knew
100%.
it would be
Genius.
punishment for her, but I also knew she would pick the guy who was DMing it because she knew,
Mm-hmm.
and she did, and then he never came back, and that was my way of getting rid of him. Bambi is amazing.
Bambi, we love you.
Bambi,
I
we
love
love
Bambi
you.
so much. Bambi shows up to my campaigns and sends me like a 13-page novel about her character written from her character's point of view. That's where I got my Marway journal idea from,
A
is
good
from
woman.
Bambi.
A good woman.
She's so good.
Ugh.
And my second player was, I don't even know really how to describe him. He was just one of the most obnoxious people I've ever seen in a game. To the point that I literally messaged the whole group and I'm like, hey guys, I'm really not enjoying DMing for this guy. Is he causing y'all problems? And
Is it
every one of
just
them
me or is
said
it the group?
yes.
Then let's
And
kill
it
him.
was like
Wow.
he was argumentative about everything. He was aggressive about everything. He would find something that meant nothing, and I would straight up tell him, "This is not for you," and just keep fucking with it. And it just got to the point where he wastes so much of the time that they're paying for,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not fair to
doing
other
things that
players. Yeah.
are
Yeah.
pointless. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that I would tell him are pointless. And so I straight up had to message him. I'm like, "Hey, as a group, we've decided not to continue with you. Sorry about it. I'm sure there's a DM out there that will be appreciative to your playstyle, but that DM's not me." And I let
Wow.
him
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Because to me, I would rather have less players that are having fun. Obviously, I'm taking a pay cut with that than more players and everyone's miserable. Because what's going to happen is
The
I
whole
could
group's gonna end.
have these players forever. I've got
Yeah.
Bambi. Who knows how long I'll get to play with Bambi? I love her to death because she's always ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
But then I've had so many groups that just fall apart because of players. Because the first guy I talked about was in another campaign that fell apart also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One player. The fact that one player can kill a group
Yeah.
without the correct communication efforts between
So
the rest of the group.
even if you're not looking to make this a business, if there are players that are ruining it for the group, cut them loose.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had I as a player have had players that are just awful. They played like a rogue. Obviously, it was a rogue, and they're like,
Mhm.
"I'm
Always a
lawful
rogue.
good," and then they would go around like jumping into commoner, like they'd be like hauling a big thing of hay, and they jump in and just take a shit in it,
What?
and we're just like,
That's not
"Why are
lawful
you
good.
doing this?" Like all of our characters
That's
were on like
neither lawful
redemption
nor good.
arcs.
That's
No,
just
we were
chaotic.
and like they would break into everything, they would steal everything, and it got to a point where we were like, as a group, we were like, hey, we're getting towards the end of the story. We're all on redemption arcs because we were all villains, essentially. We were bad
Mhm.
people who were doing good things. And we're like, it is becoming impossible for us to justify why our characters would continue to be around you.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point her character got arrested, and I was playing my eloquence divination bard, and who was a lawyer, and so I literally looked at the DM and I said, I would like to be the prosecuting attorney. And I got that character literally sent to a remote jail where they would never be seen again, because I was
Sent to
like, this character has to
Azkaban.
go. Pretty
Oh
much.
god.
I was like, I am getting rid of her because no one else has the balls to. And I'm a mean person sometimes. If you're gonna ruin something for so many people, I'm gonna come for you.
That's
Mm-hmm.
so funny.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, with a game like Dungeons and Dragons, it's a numbers game. It is. I try to, whenever I'm starting a new group, I don't try. I specifically emphasize that it is a team-based game. That I want their character to have a solid backstory, a reason why they would join this path of danger and adventure, and B, why they would join a path of adventure and danger with a group of people. Why they would join a coalition, essentially. How they would manage to fit their backstory in with a group working together. And if they can't maintain that, if they can't even write a backstory to maintain that, then you're probably not going to fit with the group, because what Dungeons and Dragons is a team-based game. And it's a game where everybody has to have a similar end goal, or have a reason to pretend even to have a similar end goal. But they have to have a reason to want to work with a group. Because otherwise, what is the point? I don't want I will never ever DM with a party who is against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like they can be different. They can have separate end goals. They could have secrets and lies and untruths about why they're working together or why they need a group to protect them. But in the end, they have to have some anchoring goal for working with a group, because I don't just want a rogue. And I say rogue, I don't mean literally the D&D rogue, but I don't just want, I just don't want a lone wolf who says I'm too cool to fit in with any kind of group. That's, shut up.
Yeah, like a Batman.
Why are you playing this game? Yeah, I don't want a Batman.
You can't be Batman.
Yes.
In my session 0, I verbatim tell people, this is a multiplayer game. You know what you are getting into when you sign up for. We all know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I am fine with you making a lone wolf, but if you cannot work with the party, then that character isn't working with the party. So you need to make a different one. You know, like obviously if they're going to wander off and do their own thing, I'm not DMing 2 campaigns here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of what makes Dion Rising very interesting, is because I think a lot of us do have secrets. We do have very conflicting beliefs. My thesis is that Zada is evil. That's the thesis that I've been working on. So yeah, very different alignments. We all have very different goals, but in the story, we still have a reason to stay together, and we still have a reason to follow through on the story together, even though we're all individuals. And so I think that's what makes it very dynamic and interesting, is that we have all these separate stories. Like, we all have our individual stories and our own paths, but for this campaign, for this moment, we are all tied together, and I think that makes it very interesting.
Yeah. Having different end goals, but the same enemy. That's all I need.
Exactly.
That's all I need. Yeah.
Yeah, we just need one through line to tie us together.
Yeah. And it's my job as your guys' DM to make sure that your common quote-unquote enemy, whatever the thing is you're all fighting against, stays the same regardless of your alignment. You all are fighting for the same essential cause.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I feel like we've talked a lot about how to be a good DM here, and like how we, as, you know, me a professional and you, I would consider you a professional DM at this point.
Thank you.
You know, how we do it. But I kind of want to talk really quickly about how to get started doing it. Because I feel like, you know, we've given all kinds of great advice for once you're going.
Yeah. We need more
getting
DMs.
started is easily the hardest part. We need so many more DMs. Just do it. So the biggest problem that I ran into is finding a group, right? I have my stuff posted all over the place. I have, you know, I at one point was running 5 games at a time. It gets so difficult to find players. And so one thing I feel like as a new person, if you're wanting to get into like DMing professionally, is don't settle. Do not settle. It might sound daunting. It might take you longer, but know your worth. First off, do not be afraid to charge what you feel like your time is worth, right? I know it can be very daunting when you're in a situation, especially with how hostile I feel like a lot of DMs out there view paid DMs. It's very much a community of like, this is something I do for fun. Why should you get paid? And it's like, well, because I don't know these people. And I mean, I'm getting paid less per game than someone would pay a clown to go to a house and provide entertainment. And that's what I'm doing, is providing entertainment. You know?
Yeah.
So where else can you go? Because I will tell you up front, I charge like $20 a session.
I was going to ask.
You get private entertainment for $20. Nowhere.
Hours of entertainment, right?
3 to 4 hours for $20.
That's a lot.
Nowhere else can you go and get that kind of price. You know, you're generally, if you want private entertainment, it's going to cost you like $300-$400 for that for like 4 hours. I mean, being a ballroom dance instructor really pushed me to being comfortable knowing my worth. Because let me tell you, I would sit people down and I'd be like, hey, I have this year membership. It's $10,000. What do you say? And now I'm like, you know, it's $20. Come on. Come on.
So I do have a question, because I will say, as someone who's never paid for Dungeons to play Dungeons and Dragons, I've never charged to play Dungeons and Dragons. So let's say you're a new DM, right? And you want to get into this. How would you, like, what's like the going rate for DMs? Like, because I feel like you're very experienced, and you said it's $20 a session per person.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people that have similar experience to me that charge upwards of like 30. I feel like
Mhm.
that's a little
So that's kind of
good
like the
for
high
them.
end. Yeah.
I don't like that. I feel like the average is around 25. I normally like to go lower
25.
because
Okay.
again, I like newer players and oftentimes,
Yeah.
a super high price tag is going to be daunting.
So it's more
Um
accessible.
yeah, I again, I feel like D&D should be accessible to everyone.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say if it is your first time DMing, I do not think you should charge people. I'm just going to be honest. This is your
Mhm.
time to learn,
Grow.
take
Yeah.
it in.
Yeah.
My biggest thing I would recommend is pick a module that they have written, right? Run it.
Mm-hmm.
Run
Mm-hmm.
it once so you know it. And once you know it, that's when you can start charging people. You cannot charge people for something you don't know. And even like once you've gotten the hang of it and once you have the ability to improv, you can pick up new adventures and charge for that. That's fine, but you have to have a solid foundation to start that.
Yeah.
Because again, you have to be worth the price that you're charging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I was a DM for family and friends, and I still did not DM until I had gone through 2 seasons of Critical Role. And I only started DMing within Wildmount. And that was for free
Mm.
because I did not
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
was the first time I felt like I knew what I was talking about. I understood the world, the mechanic. And and we said this 1,000 times. Like I did not even understand the mechanics the same way I understood the world and the lore. And I'm a role play Dungeons and Dragons player, and I'm a role
Mm-hmm.
play DM. And I understand the mechanics enough to fake it until I make it. But I understand them enough to run the game, right? So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Bobby's
Yeah.
exactly right. Like, don't charge for it unless you know how to be the final decision maker, unless you have
Mm-hmm.
the context and at least a base understanding of, honestly, it's the physics of it. Like, when it comes down to the rules that I don't know, it's about asking myself, what makes sense in reality, in the physics of the world? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can I let this trick that they're trying to pull break the laws of physics and the laws of nature, or break the game at the level that they're at?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So don't DM
And
unless you have a solid grasp on the reality of the world that you've built.
yes, and again, not to sound daunting, but you do need to know at least a little bit of your stuff, especially if you're going to charge. If you're going to
Mm-hmm.
charge, you need to know your shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even if it's your first time, $5 per person per session, that is a fine. You're gonna get a little bit of money, and you're going to get great practice with clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because DMing for your friends and DMing for clients is very, very different. Even when I look at we bring her up all the time, but Bambi, our relationship, I love her to death, but DMing for her is still different than if I were to DM for my husband,
Yeah.
because she is still my client, even though we both adore each other so much. And I have a responsibility as someone that she is hiring for this service to
Mm-hmm.
provide her with a fun experience. It is my job to make sure that they are having fun, not me as the DM is having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love it. I have a great time with them because, especially Bambi, she gives me so much to work with, and I get to work with her character so much harder than pretty much everyone else. But, like,
you
you
have
want
to
to.
you ha-
You do.
sorry to interrupt you. You have to appreciate anybody who's willing to spend 50 cents on playing a D&D campaign. People who are willing to pay a penny to play this game. There are free games
Mhm.
they can play with zero expectations. People who are willing to spend $1 on playing D&D, they deserve a little bit extra. And
Yes. And
usually
like,
they're not paying $1. They're paying $5 an hour or more. They deserve
yeah.
someone who is ready to run a really satisfying fucking game.
Mhm. 100%. And like,
Your brain is
DMing
being a
isn't
video
cheap.
game for them. Video games are
Yeah,
expensive.
DMing isn't cheap.
Yeah.
We have to buy all these DM guides. We have to buy the monster manuals. We have to buy the software that we're going to be running the games on. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
run on I do. So pick a gimmick also. Get yourself a gimmick. If you're a combat DM, advertise that you are here for combat. If you are a roleplay DM like myself, advertise it because
Mm.
that will keep you from getting the players that aren't gonna fit. Because all of my shit literally is like I roleplay. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
cinnamon roll and I hate killing your characters, and then in parentheses, but I will. Like I let it known to all of my players in session 0. I do not like killing characters because I like to see story growth. So they go into it knowing that this is a story heavy campaign. Get a gimmick. The software I use something called Tailspire. If you're looking to get into D&D, it is
It's
so
incredible.
fucking
It's
cool.
so good.
It is all 3D. It is so much fun. As a DM, invest in what you're trying to sell. I bought it, and then I also bought seats so that my players don't have to buy it. They can just get a free version. Also, with that, all of my players, when they make a character, are going to go on Hero Forge and create a character that I can import into these 3D digital boards. And that way they have, in digital, we're so used to it just being a generic picture. This way, they created it. This is their
I
character.
feel connected to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more personal. So find yourself a gimmick. Tailspire, if you want to sponsor me, I would love that because I cannot talk highly enough about them.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore Tailspire. It's so good for what I do.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I can't underestimate how I haven't looked at the science of it, but the difference between in-person gaming and online gaming. And I am not trying to discredit online gaming because there are things like Tailspire and many, many, many tools like Tailspire that make online gaming as close as possible to real life gaming. But even just today, I had one of my in real life groups. We all had to decide today. We have a session planned for Sunday. It's an 8-hour session, and there's supposed to be apparently like 13 inches of snow on that day.
Oh wow.
So
That sounds so magical.
and this is a group that highly prefers in-person gaming,
Yes.
where they each have a mini that I've hand painted and hand printed for each of them, and where I have all the bad guys printed and painted, and it just is, no matter what online can do, in person is, there's something about sitting at a table with your friends. It just,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother episode about how incredible it is to sit in a living room or around a dining table and play D&D. And one of my players said, I so prefer playing in person, but we're probably gonna, at least me and my wife are gonna have to play online on Sunday. And I was like, yeah, obviously we should just plan on playing online. And it is different, but things like Tailspire, things like Hero Forge, and things like, frankly, Discord and Roll20 and Above VTT, you can get as close as you can to playing in real life, but there's nothing like sitting around a table with your friends.
I want to get onto our topic of professional in terms of in person. I have a weird thing for you that blows my mind. So I want to talk a little bit about the taboo of pay to play games, but before we really get into that, in person pay to play has such a higher toxicity of like
Really?
Because you're only working
which is
you're working within a smaller
wow.
community. You're working within a smaller community.
Yeah, but you'd think like if I'm driving to this location, I have all of these physical setups. You'd think that people would be more willing to pay
They're like
for that. But
impressed
they
with
are
all
not.
your
But it actually
stuff.
They don't give a
increases their
shit.
expectations, and they hate it no matter what you do.
What?
Yeah, they will
Mhm.
not. I was running a campaign. I was gonna charge like $3 a session, and I could not get people to pay.
Yeah.
What?
Accurate.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I had no idea. This is very surprising to me.
Yeah, it is a very big hatred. There is a big community that hates pay to play DMs. They think that it's this awful thing that's like tainting the community, but I mean, I get to run 5 campaigns a week because I don't have to have a normal job.
Yeah. Yeah. This
And
is your
You
job.
can
Yeah.
do it during
there are so
daylight
many
hours.
benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are
Mhm.
benefits that I found that outweigh the cost. And that's when you join a pay to play game, there are benefits for both the DM and the player. So, just from the player perspective, one, I rarely have people cancel because they are in it, right? They are here for the game. They want to play. 2, they're paying attention because
Yeah.
they've paid for this service. You're not going to get
Mhm.
people that are just on their phone the whole time. That just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And I mean, and your DM is going to know their shit. And if they don't, ask for a refund. But they know what they're doing. So I've had DMs that I adore in person games that I didn't pay, and occasionally midway through the session they would stop and they have to read the module for 30 minutes.
Yeah, because they didn't actually prepare for
I
enough
don't
of
do
what you
that.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not prepared. Your paid DM is going to be prepared for pretty much anything you do.
Because it's their
Um,
job.
but it's their job to give you this entertainment.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would never tell someone go pay Play-It over free. Like if you have a D&D group that is free that you adore, go play it. Play D&D. I'm just saying that if you are looking for more specific things, there are DMs that are willing to do just about any kind of campaign if you pay them for it, because they're
Mhm.
ready to accept new players. I'm always looking for new players, so
I'm about to pay to play in one of Bobby's campaigns because I just want to play a player so negative money with the current job within the state-funded education system, and I'm about to fucking pay money to play. And okay, wait, we have to end up this. We have to round up this episode. I just want everybody to know that I have a friend. Shout out Skylar in the sky with planes. Who for his birthday I bought him the Lord of the Rings module that they just put out, or the Lord of the Rings book.
Oh, I
And-
didn't know that.
Because he agreed to run a Lord of the Rings campaign. And so he's learning it. It's going to be fully in person, fully physical. We're not even going to have D&D Beyond character sheets. He says he wants us to have only physical character sheets, physical dice, no devices at the table.
Wow.
We're only going to run it in person with physical 70s style gameplay. And I have never been so excited. First of all, it's been years since I've gotten to really play as a character. It's been years, long years, and I just want to play.
yeah.
I just want to not have to plan and just show up and kick ass. And I'm so excited that he's willing to run a Lord of the Rings campaign because the way I got into Dungeons and Dragons is because I was a Lord of the Rings child. I was a baby of Arwen and Aragorn. That's who I am.
Arwen changed my life.
Arwen and Aragorn physically built me as a person.
Well, if you were free on Thursday nights, which I know you are, I do have a campaign that just did their session 0 today. So
Oh, wow.
I'm only free on Thursday night that I'm not recording Guessing Witches
right.
Back-to-back episodes.
back-to-back episodes.
Yeah.
I'm so excited, and I will absolutely be keeping the podcast and the group updated on how I get to behave as a player. I think I'm going to play a Rohirrim human.
Ooh,
Yes.
yes. Classics.
Yeah. I was fighting with
I love
myself
that.
between that and a high elf, but I think I just have to be a horse lord.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
I would have
You're
to be
gonna
an
be like a
elf.
shield maiden?
Yeah, exactly.
I
think I want to be a
know
shield
it.
maiden.
Yes, I knew
And
it.
it's a small, tiny group. Oh, it's gonna be so tasty. So I'm excited to keep you all updated on that. I finally get to be a player. I'm ready.
I'm so excited for
I'm
you.
ready. So
This whole
before we wrap
podcast is
up,
just
can
to
I-
evangelize people so that Kara can play.
Yeah.
yes, someone DM for me. I'm gonna start ripping
She
my
will
hair.
pay you negative money.
I make no money in my actual real life education based job, and I will still pay you money to DM for me. I just want to play.
So before we
Love
wrap
beta
up, I
DMs.
just have I have 2 more just like tips I want to give out before we wrap up, just really quick ones.
Get it?
The first one, if you're digital, let your players roll real dice. Because if
Amen.
you were in person, it's not like you get up and walk around the table to look at their dice anyway. If they're gonna lie,
Amen.
they're gonna lie. Let them use those dice. They will love it.
If you have, additionally to that, if you have a DM who wants to be able to see your dice rolls, who doesn't trust you because they're an asshole, if they don't trust you to roll physical dice if you're playing online, my husband bought we don't have a DM who doesn't trust us. He just wants to be super honest because he's autistic. He bought it's a teacher's, it's like $40. It's a teacher's document camera. So it's this little, like, it's on a base.
Oh, the little projector thing?
A little tiny camera that projects downwards. It's what teachers use when they're trying to project a worksheet.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just slide your little dice box under it so that it can be part of your Discord. So yes, Bobby, I agree.
That is so cute.
Yeah.
Let your
Also,
people roll physical dice and trust them. If you can't trust your
if you have a
players,
bit-
to be
if-
honest, then don't play with those players.
True. And if you have if budget isn't an issue, they do make dice that you can connect to your computer. So when you roll them, it shows the dice roll. Those are so fucking cool.
That
for
is
stuff.
crazy.
Those are very
Guys,
cool.
I'm just gonna have to say, I think you know, I'm so bad at math.
Yeah, I like
If your
digital dice
players are
'cause
bad
I'm
at math, let them roll digital. Give them the option. I want to state.
Mm-hmm. If your players bad at math, let them fucking use D&D Beyond. It works. I prefer it.
I just want to push the button.
But I also use
As a
physical dice
DM,
in
I
real
use
life.
digital all the time.
Yeah.
I don't always have time to roll, 13 d8s
Yeah.
for my liches of damage.
I'm a hybrid bitch.
I ain't got time for that.
As a DM, I'm a hybrid bitch. Half the time I'm rolling physical, half the time I'm rolling on D&D Beyond. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, y'all know I'm a dice goblin.
Yes,
so
you are.
Whenever my players collect an NPC into their party, I literally get a set of dice just for that NPC.
Yeah.
Factual.
Yep. Trust your players. If you can't trust your players, don't play with them. Figure it out.
Yes. My second piece of advice that took me a long time to learn is that building your community is more important than making money. All right? There is going to be an occasion where a player can't afford to play that week. Let them play free. It's going to happen. There could be times where you have a friend that wants to join in and you're having trouble filling seats. Let them play for free if they can't afford it, because people will join games that have more people in them. So sometimes having a free seat every so often is better than just not having a campaign.
True.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Be gracious with your clients. Again, if they cannot pay that week, do not make them feel bad, because when they can pay, they're coming back to you because you were nice to them. I have so many players that even if they're not in my campaigns anymore, we still talk. They still come to me for advice on character builds. They still, we still have a relationship. Build relationships before building a bank account.
I think the number one thing about Dungeons and Dragons is empathy. Period. Period, exclamation point. Whether you're playing a combat heavy, only min-maxing, only dice rolls campaign, or whether you're playing fully role-playing, have empathy. You're all here to play pretend, and it's hard. It's hard. We can talk about it as much as we can because we do this weekly, or more than weekly, or daily in Bobby's case. It's easy for us to say, it's so easy to get into D&D. There's 1,000 reasons. It's hard to be empathetic and to play pretend and to embarrass yourself in front of a group.
It's very vulnerable. Yeah.
It's very vulnerable. So number one rule is play with empathy. Whether you're playing paid or you're playing for free with friends, just have empathy and know that everybody has come here for community and kindness and acceptance and empathy.
I know you're trying to wrap up, but I have something else to say. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everyone for dragging you through the longest episode of...
No, I want to know your tips.
This is not the longest episode. Keep going.
Oh, good. Thank God. When you start doing this, people are going to tell you it's not a real job. People are going to tell you that you're just having fun the whole time. People are going to tell you that you get paid just to play games. Do not listen to them. It is valid when you get stressed because you have multiple things you're trying to remember, multiple campaigns you're trying to remember, different people, different characters. You're trying to keep up with all these different monsters that you have planned for this week for your 15 different games. It is a real job. You are allowed to feel stressed. You are allowed to feel burnout. It is okay. I feel like that's just something so important that people forget about DMs is that it is so much work to build maps, to build encounters, to balance things, to come up with fun NPCs, to wrangle people when they get lost and they can't figure out where they're going, to socialize with
Yeah.
people for 3 to 4 hours at a time with, just constant. And then doing that 3 times a day, you have 3 groups that you're just socializing. It is okay for your social battery to be tired. And don't you dare let people tell you otherwise.
I'm very glad you said that because
I know, it just popped in
1000%.
my head. I had all these
could
talking
not
points and
say
I
it
didn't
better.
write any of them down.
That's not what this podcast is about. You're exactly right. It is, please appreciate your DMs. And I say that as a DM, so it sounds silly, but appreciate your DMs. It is, if you appreciate teachers and educators and people who work in social services and people who support other people and who have empathy, support your DMs because we're here and it is difficult. It is so difficult. It's so
draining
fun.
sometimes.
It's so fun. But the only reward we get is knowing that we make other people feel good.
Mm-hmm. How many sessions, might I ask you, have you finished and you're just you were having a great time, but the moment the session's over, you're like, oh my God. It's like it just hits you all at once.
Immediately I realize I have to play in the next session.
Yeah, it just even ones
It's
that I've
exhausting.
done this campaign multiple times and I don't have to plan. It's
Yeah.
just after it's over, I'm just like, ugh.
It gives me
Take a deep breath and
really
just drain.
deep appreciation for therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists and to just keep it moving, to just keep going. It's difficult. It's hard. Appreciate your DMs. Appreciate what, not just Dungeons and Dragons, but appreciate what imagination and games and play and it's a lot of things that our current society doesn't give especially monetary value to.
Yeah.
Give it value and give those people who run these games for you value because they work their asses off. For every hour that you play with them, it's 3 hours of planning and 3 hours of them thinking about you as a person and what you need from them. It's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, anything you wanna plug while we round this up?
Well, obviously the normal stuff that we always plug. Come watch us on Dion Rising. Obviously, we have so much fun doing that. I'm over on the Int Mod Pod, trying my best to teach you as best as I can because I want everyone to be able to play this game.
You're passionate about accessibility. You are.
I am. I want this to be so easy for people to start playing. And if you are interested in a campaign with me, I am over on the Start Playing website. My name is Bobby Peters. You can Google, or not Google me. You can search me on there. We might even be able to put a link somewhere here. I don't know how the Casting Friendship podcast does things right now. I'm a guest, which is a great feeling. So if you're interested in a game with me, feel free and just message me. If you just want to learn how to play from me, just message me and we can set something up. I will do my best to teach you as best as I can because I want you in this community.
Yes. As always, we'll have the normal links in the description, but I'll also add Bobby's Int Mod Pod and his Let's Start Playing link so that if you want to play with a real professional DM, you know where to find him.
And look out for our sponsored new DM Appreciation Day that we're going to be starting.
Yes.
My Dion Rising.
If you're in person and not paying, get your DM cookies. They will love it. Trust me.
Oh my God, send your
We're
DM
gonna
cookies.
start that.
Pay them with food if you're not paying them with money. Food is a good form of currency, trust.
Truly. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you, as always. Our fans, particularly this episode, Card Trick and Bambi.
Thank you, Bambi.
Specifically.
Specifically them, but also everybody who's new, all of our long-term listeners. We love you. We appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you. So leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. It really does help. Check out all of Knights of D20's content, including Dion Rising, which is our big main Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which airs live every Monday night at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on Twitch.
Absolutely. And make sure you jump in that chat, interact with us, because then we can give you calls out just like we did for Bambi and Card Trick.
Card Trick, yeah.
If you
Be
want
our
to be one of our
friends.
major fans, just come talk to us, and we will immediately be like, "Oh my god,
We
our
love
favorite people
Love us.
We
Also,
love.
come check out our Discord too.
Please check out our. We have a Discord fan page where you get to see all the earliest previews of everything, including recently they got to see our newest Dion Rising fan art. So,
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous, right? I'm incredible. So
it's so good.
Come, just follow us in all the places. We love you all. Thank you. Happy New Year. Love you, Bobby.
Happy New Year.
Love you, Mel.
Happy New Year.
Thank
Love
you.
You too, Kara.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.